All right, let's go ahead and get started. I'll pray for us. Father, I pray that you help us today as we, as your people, try to think your thoughts after you. Your word is so clear, and our minds are so dull because of sin and the effects of sin. But I pray, you say, if any man lacks wisdom, let him ask of God. And I pray that you grant us today wisdom as we look at your word and try to put the pieces of your narrative together in a way that brings you glory and that will, in a way that will bring us life. Father, we come into your presence in your word, acknowledging that you are a holy God and we are sinful people. We acknowledge that we have profaned your name by our conduct. And yet we come asking that you would apply the benefits that Jesus has earned in our behalf to our lives today. That more and more that you would grant us a new heart and a new mind, and that you would cause us to walk in your way. And that you would, as your word says, be made merciful to me, the sinner. All of us make that prayer today. We're not claiming any inherent superiority to anyone. We are not better inherently than any other people, but we come pleading the merits of Christ and would ask that the benefits that he has earned in our behalf that you would give to us today. For we make this prayer in his name. Amen. All right. So today we're going to look at one of my favorite things to look at in the Bible, and it's surrounded by two names / titles for God. God's proper name, YHWH. Some people pronounce it Yahweh, others Jehovah, but this is God's covenant name. We're going to look at what that means in the Bible, and then a title of his, Elohim, usually translated God, and we're going to see that that is a spectacularly interesting word to for God to choose to describe himself. Ultimately, we're going to ask the question, how does Jesus relate to YHWH and this word Elohim? But all right, well, what we're going to look at today, these 5 things. What is the word Elohim in the Old Testament, usually translated by the word God? We're going to look at what that means. What is the word Yahweh in the Old Testament? How is Jesus related to Yahweh in the Old Testament? And what do we make of this fact that monotheistic language is applied to Jesus? It's applied to God the Father, but also to Jesus. What are we to make of that? And then ultimately, we're going to look at a Jewish prayer called the Shema. If we were Jews, the Old Testament law would dictate that 3 times a day we would say, we would get up and say, Shema Israel, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad, ve'ahavta et Adonai Eloheka, B'kol levavka u'v'kol nafshka u'v'kol me'odeka. Jewish prayer, hear, O Israel, the Lord our God, the Lord is one. You will love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, and all your muchness, whatever that exactly means. And we're commanded, if we were Jews, to say that prayer the first thing in the morning when we got up, as we walked in the way, and when we would go to sleep at night. So if you're 50 years old, you would have said that prayer 50,000 times. Well, what's the deal with that, and how does it relate to Jesus? So that's what we're going to do today. I love this talk. Let's dive in. So Elohim and biblical theology. So the Bible starts off, in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. Maybe the most famous line from the Bible, in the beginning, God did something. And what we're going to look at today is this word God. And you may or may not know that the Bible originally was not written in English. The English is a translation of the original text, which was written in Hebrew. This is what stands written. It's 3,500 years old. It starts here. This language is so old that it starts from here. You read it this way. You start at the back of the book and read to the front in the Hebrew Bible, which is kind of weird. These little guys are like the vowels, and they were added like later to help people like me who aren't fluent in the language to help read it. But this is old. It's within 600 years of being the oldest thing written on planet Earth. The only thing older than this text written down are the Egyptian hieroglyphics. It's a beautiful language. If we read it this way, it starts, Bereshit bara Elohim et ha-shamayim va'et ha'aretz. And just a wonderfully lovely language. And we want to dive into this text and take a deep dive and look at it. The first word, Bereshit, it's actually two words in Hebrew. This means in, and then Reshit means in the beginning. And there's not really much debate about that. Pronounced Bereshit, or some people pronounce it Bereshith. It depends on if you're trying to do the old pronunciation or the new. It means in beginning, literally, not really much debate. In Greek, it's translated NRK in Genesis 1, which is really weird because that's exactly how John 1:1 starts. So there's a connection between John 1:1 and Genesis 1:1 around this beautiful word, Bereshit, in the beginning. So that's our first word, Bereshit. Then we come to this word, bara. And bara means he created. So when you come to the second word in the Hebrew Bible, it's telling you that someone brought into existence everything that has been brought into existence, and that entity is choosing to describe himself as a he versus a she, or a they. All right, how many of you have had a foreign language? Okay, lots of people. Good for you. You know, they say a person who knows 3 languages is a polylinguist, and someone who knows 2 is a bilingual person, and someone who knows 1 language is an American. We're the only people in the world who don't learn foreign languages because our language happens to be the language that all the rest of the world tries to learn. But I'm so glad that some of you are learning foreign languages. It'll fix your English language, it'll help you learn grammar, but I'll get off my soapbox as a Greek teacher and just make this point. Of the languages that you learned, what foreign languages have you learned? Spanish, very good. What else? Spanish and Greek. German, good. What else? Sign language, American Sign Language, good. What else? French, very good. What else? Latin, very good. What else? I am so. You Canes are so good with all of that. Very, very good. What else? For those of you who've learned a foreign language, and particularly our friend here, what is your name? Elijah. Does this look familiar to you? Yeah. Okay. Does anybody know what this is called? If you had a foreign language? It's a verb conjugation chart. And English is nearly the only language that doesn't really have these, but if you learn Latin, if you learn German, if you learn French, if you learn Spanish, if you learn lots of other languages, you have to learn a conjugation chart. And this is the way they work in every language. This is the word love, because in Latin the conjugation word is love. So you learn amo, amas, amat, amamas, amatis, amant. I love, you love, he, she, or it loves. We love, you love, they love. And so what you have are these little bits at the end that you add, and it tells you who does the action of the verb. Latin works that way, Greek works that way, Aramaic works that way, Syriac works that way, Hebrew works that way, French works that way, German works that way, Spanish works that way, and probably loads of other languages work that way, all having a conjugation chart. This is the one in German, and our friend who knew German, do you remember memorizing this chart? I go, you go, he, she, or it goes, we go, you go, they go. I sit, you sit, he, she, or it sit. You kind of get the idea, right? Or if we learn French, same way. I regard, and my French is terrible, but I think this is how it works. I, you, he, she, or it, we, you, they. Okay? My Spanish is non-existent, but I know enough about languages to know that this is a conjugation chart, and this is how you say I drink, you, he, she, it. You kind of get the idea. This is how all languages work. Hebrew has a massive conjugation chart. This is Hebrew's conjugation chart. And believe it or not, in Hebrew, in Latin, the conjugation verb is love. In Hebrew, the conjugation word is kill. Who thought that? Just got to stay late that day, right? But the way it works is katal, katala, katalta. He killed, she killed, you man killed, you woman killed, I killed, they killed, you all men kill, you all women kill, we kill, right? And so since we're reading this way, you just add little bits to the end, and that will tell you who's doing the action. Now, are you with me? You understand how this is working? So when we come to the word bara, we ask the question, where does it fit in this conjugation chart? And the only place where the word bara will fit is right here. Bara, he created. If it was she created, it would be ra. If it were they created, it would be ba-re-u, right? So the fact that it's bara means the only place that it will fit is here, and it's saying This is a third person masculine singular verb. So, 2 words into the Hebrew Bible, we have monotheism established, that only one person did it, and that one person is choosing to describe himself as a man versus a woman. And so far, so good. No one is going to dispute that at all. That's what the word means, 2 words into the Hebrew Bible. The problem comes when it starts to describe who the he is. And in Hebrew, you put your verbs first, and then you're going to put your subject after your verb. And so it establishes there's a he, but the problem comes when it starts trying to describe who that he is. Let me see if I can explain it. The problem is with this word Elohim, who the he is. So this is the word Elohim, and there's a huge grammatical problem with this word. In fact, it's such a grammatical problem that all kinds of people have offered different explanations how to get around the huge grammatical problem with this word. It's pronounced Elohim, and here's the problem. And in showing you the problem, I'm going to try to convince you that you probably know more Hebrew than you think you know. Let me see if I can prove that to you. So, in Hebrew, this is the word horse, okay? Sus. I think we get the word Susanna from this word, she who is graceful with horses. I think that's the background of the word Susanna. And in Hebrew, this is how it works. If you're talking about a male horse, that male horse is called a sus. But if you're talking about a female horse, you call it a susah. So if you want to take a masculine word and make it a feminine word, you add this little bit on the end, and it will convert the masculine word to a feminine word. So if our word sus, and we want to make it a female version of that, we just add the female ending, susah. If we're talking about 2 male horses, we add this ending, susaim. So a sus is a horse. What are 2 male horses? Susaim. That's going to be 2 horses. If we're talking about 2 feminine horses, it's susathaim. And so if you say the word susathaim, the thaim part says double it up and make it feminine, right? And then, if you want to have more than 2 masculines, you add im to the end, susim, so sus becomes susim. And if you want to have more than 2 feminine horses, is susoth. And that's how all words work in Hebrew. So let's try our knowledge out. If one of those creatures that keep people sinners out of the Garden of Eden is called a cherub, what would a bunch of cherubs be called in Hebrew? Cherubim. In other words, you add im to the end, and it's going to convert this word to the plural. All right? Those fiery snake-like creatures in Isaiah 6, one is a seraph. They're on fire, flying in God's presence. Like, I plead ignorance, like I don't know what that is, but one is a seraph. That's right, and woe is me. A bunch of them are called seraphim. All right, funny thing about Hebrew is the only language where the word who means he, and the word he means she, And the word me means who, and the word dog means fish. Jonah Tyree actually added one, ma, what? So, like, you can get 5 words in Hebrew if you can just remember that kind of joke. Who is he is she, me is who, and dog is fish. So, a male fish is called a dog in Hebrew. What would a bunch of male fishes be called in Hebrew? Actual Hebrew word. Huh. In fact, we could go through 10,000 words in Hebrew. And I could give you the word, and you could convert that to a masculine plural, more than 2, by adding the word im to any word that I gave you in Hebrew. Okay, so tell me what the difference is between the word Eloah, which Moses uses in Deuteronomy, and Elohim. It's plural. Elohim in Hebrew does not mean the word God. Elohim in Hebrew is the word gods. But we can't translate it that way because the verb is singular. If we were hearing it the same way Hebrew people heard it, Bereshit bara Elohim, this is how we would have to translate it. In the beginning, he, that is God's, he created the heavens and the earth. What's difficult about that statement? Contradicting one another, or perhaps our feeble language is inadequate. The God of the Bible is presenting himself as a Yhwh. The God of the Bible is presenting himself as a he, they. So you come to the Bible and say, how should I think of you? And God says, think of me as an Yhwh. When you talk about me, describe me as a he, they. As one entity, equally, eternally, absolutely, who at the same time, equally, eternally, absolutely, is a they. Okay, so give me an example of that. Is it like ice, water, and steam? No. Because those are 3 different states of the same thing. This is saying that there's an Yhwh who acts, and when he acts as an I, and when he acts, he also acts as a we. This Yhwh, this he, they, is at the same time singular, equally, absolutely, eternally, and at the same time a they, equally, eternally, absolutely. Yeah, there's something in this language that is drawing us to a truth that is beyond our experience. And that's 3 words into the Hebrew Bible. Well, this is what B.B. Warfield said. When you think of the Old Testament, think of a lavishly furnished room dimly lit. Okay, and he's talking about Genesis 1 when he gives this example. Progressive revelation in the Bible is not that the content of the room changes, but rather that as more and more candles come in, you begin to see. So in that context, he says, is Elohim the Trinity? And Warfield says, well, if you mean, is Elohim the 3rd century word that the Christian church came up with to describe what was true in the Bible, he would say no. Trinity is going to be the word after a long debate. But is there something in Genesis 1:1 that only finds resolution when you get to the discussion of the Trinity? He says yes. Lavishly furnished room dimly lit. There is this Yhwh in terms of God's description that only finds adequate resolution when you fully spell out the doctrine of the Trinity. 3, with Anselm, I know not what, who all have everything that makes God God. And that was written in a text that's 3,500 years old.
So when God tasks Moses to go back to Egypt, and Moses asks him, who shall I say that you are? What does God respond? What words?
Well, that's going to be the second part of our talk about that YHWH. And we're going to see that that's glorious as well. And you heard me read it. Is there any of that where I've forced the interpretation, or is that what the language means? Bereshit bara, not Eloah, Bereshit bara Elohim. And what did the Elohim create? Well, this little guy tells us, the heavens and the earth. That word appears 2,600 times in the Old Testament. The verbs nearly always with it are he. There are a handful of places that say they, and they're a matter of discussion, but most times it's he. In the beginning, or Elohim, he did this. So the conclusion is the God of the Old Testament describes himself as a he, they, or he's describing himself as an I, we. And the Hebrew Bible is 1,600 pages. That tension is on every single page of the Hebrew Bible. Every single one.
So, obviously, God is usually referred to about that, but when he talks about the different, each different person of what we would call the Trinity, God the Father, God the Son, God the Holy Spirit, is there some sort of language used in there that helps with this interpretation?
There isn't, in that God is trying to communicate a truth that is unlike anything in our experience. I mean, even the idea, Augustine had memory, will, and what's remembered. Well, that is the unity, but those aren't people, right? And people talk about, well, I can be a husband and a father and an uncle. Well, that's true, but there's no personality difference there. So even the best analogies that people have tried to come up with fall radically short. And the person who does this much better than me, YouTube, Lutheran Satire, go to the Aw Patrick video. Aw Patrick, I'm just going to stop you right there. Like kind of spelling out how not to think of the Trinity. That Lutheran Satire guy is really, really, really good. I like him. Look how the New Testament connects Genesis 1 and John 1. In the beginning, God, Elohim, look what John does, was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. The same was in the beginning with God, right? Okay, so he's saying, how do you understand Elohim? And he's saying, well, let me kind of try to get at that plurality, you know, the one the rabbis could never explain to us. When you're thinking of the incarnate one in Jesus, go back to the Elohim, and that plurality is there. And so the Jews think of heavens and the earth as all things, and notice what John says, all things were made through him. And without him, there isn't one atom anywhere in the universe. There's not one entity anywhere in the universe that's created that wasn't created by Jesus.
When it says the Word was with God, is the word God Elohim or Elohim?
So we're dealing with two different languages. So this is written in Hebrew, and this is written in Greek, but it's the same word, theos. When you go to the translate, it's the exact same word that they translate this word with. So it's a little different because you're dealing with two ancient languages, but it's clearly spelling out the same idea. And so we have this created all things, and you can see how he's saying this is connected there. And then we have this statement, let there be light, and John says in him was life, in Greek Zoe, which is actually Eve's name, and the Zoe was the light of mankind. Oh, wow. And the light shines in the darkness. Oh, this is like the commentary on how we should understand this. Plurality and unity within God. So when you think of the one God who has one essence and one will, a shared existence, shared eternity, shared omniscience, shared omnipresence, John is saying the Word was inside that reality, not outside that reality. That pushes my mind to the absolute limit, trying to think God's thoughts after him. I have no analogy. I can only describe what the words are saying. So, I've talked so much. I hate that this class is so big that we can't talk back and forth as much, but let's look at part 2 of this, YHWH in biblical theology. So when Moses is being sent to deliver the people, a person talks to him. And that person in Hebrew's name is YHWH. Whenever you have the all caps Lord, that's what they're telling you is in the Hebrew text. And Moses said to Elohim, behold, I'm going to the sons of Israel, and I will say to him, the Elohim of your fathers has sent me to you, and now they may say to me, well, what is his name, and what will I tell them? Elohim said to Moses, tell them this, I am who I am. And he said, thus you shall say to the sons of Israel, I am sent me to you. Elohim furthermore said to Moses, thus you shall say to the sons of Israel, YHWH, the Elohim of your fathers, the Elohim of Abraham, the Elohim of Isaac, the Elohim of Jacob, that person has sent me to you. So this I am who I am in Hebrew, I am who I am, I was who I was, I will be who I will be. That's what it means. It means all three of those things at the same time. The shortened form is I am, and God, Elohim says if you want a title for that, tell them YHWH has sent me. So this is the word. This is what it looks like. It's God's most sacred name, YHWH. It's called the Tetragrammaton, the four sacred letters. I'm running out of time. Let me, maybe we can do the questions after class. This is called the Tetragrammaton, YHWH, and Jewish people will not say this word out loud. They're afraid of profaning that name. And so what they say instead, well, they won't say out loud what it means and what it looks like. This looks like the verb to be, third masculine singular in the imperfect. It looks like that, and that can mean he is who he is, he was who he was, he will be who he will be. Jews, instead of saying this word out loud, replace it with the word Adonai, and what we do is we replace it with the writing the Lord, but put Lord in all caps. So Jews say Adonai, and this word Adonai, whenever they come to this in the text, they replace it with this word Adonai. But here's the curveball. The word Adonai actually means my lords. And what do you notice about the word lords? Like when you say this word out loud, do you recognize the word lords is actually plural? So just like you come to a plural word and you kind of think singular, now with God's name you come to a singular word, but you pronounce it plural. And this word YHWH appears 6,828 times in the Old Testament. So how are we to think of Jesus Jesus and Yahweh according to the Bible? Well, this is what Jesus said. Father, glorify me together with yourself with the glory which I had with you before the cosmos existed. This is Jesus' high priestly prayer. It's the last recorded thing we have before he died on the cross. Glorify me with your glory. Well, the Bible says this about the Lord. The Lord is my name. My glory I don't give to anybody else. Jesus is saying, give me the glory I shared with you. And YHW says, I don't share my glory with anyone. Jesus says, give me the glory I had with you. And YHWH says, I don't share my glory. But God the Father shares his glory with Jesus. Is Jesus included or excluded in YHWH? In the same prayer, I am no longer in the cosmos, yet they themselves are in the cosmos. I come to you, Holy Father, keep them in your name. Keep them in your name. If you were a Jew, what is God's name? God's name is YHWH. Keep them in your name. Keep them in that name. And then notice what Jesus says, the name which you have given to me. Jesus is saying, I share the name YHWH. And I pray that they would be one the same way we are one. Philippians 2, therefore God highly exalted him and bestowed on him. And if we were Jews, you tell me what would come to mind. The name, the one which is above every name. And then Paul starts quoting the most monotheistic passage in the Bible, Isaiah 45:23. To me, every knee will bow and every tongue confess that Jesus Christ, and boy, I have a quibble here with the ESV. Jesus Christ is Lord. Okay, sure, it is the word kurios in Greek. But why not translate it that Jesus Christ is Lord? That's how we should do it. That's what Paul is saying. He's using monotheistic language to tell us who Jesus is. Jesus isn't just the replacement for the Roman emperor. Jesus Christ is kurios. Jesus Christ possesses the tetragrammaton because the one who speaks in the Old Testament is an Yhwh, and Jesus is included in the Yhwh. That's what this text is telling us. I wish I had saved language, but the traditional historic Orthodox Christianity teaches that Jesus is fully God and fully man, two natures in one person forever, in the unity of his person because of his human nature. He fully experiences all the things that make man man. He can be ignorant. He can grow in wisdom and stature and favor with God and man. He can be tempted. He can be limited to one place on earth. He can feel real pain. And yet, because he has two natures, this is also true at the same time and in the unity of his person. Because of his divine nature, Jesus fully possesses eternality, omniscience, omnipresence. Jesus rightly receives worship. Jesus rightly has the application of Yahweh text to himself. Even the application of the most monotheistic language in the Bible, Jesus applies to himself. You've got one God on one side and then everything that is not the one God. Which side of those equations does Jesus belong to? Jesus belongs to this side of the equation. Jesus said the most important commandment is you will love the Lord your God. Hear, O Israel, the Lord your God, the Lord is one. Jesus said that's the most important thing. This sums up all the prophets. Well, what about that Shema thing I talked about? Where would Jesus come down on that? Hear, O Israel, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Well, where would he come down on it? We don't have to guess. Paul tells us. Knowledge puffs up, love builds up, but if someone loves God, this one has been known by him. We know that an idol is nothing and there is no God except one. Where did Paul get that from? He got it from the Shema, right? He had said it 50,000 times if he was 50 years old. And so this is, he said, no God but one. And then he says, just as there are many so-called gods, gods many and lords many. There's one God, the real God, and then you've got fake gods, which are gods many and lords many. And then Paul says, yet for us there is one God the Father, from whom all things are, and we are to him, and one Lord. Okay, this is a guy who, when he got up in the morning, he said, Shema Israel, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad ve'ahavta et Adonai Elohecha, B'kol levavka, b'kol nafshka, b'kol me'odeka, one Lord. Who is the God of the Bible? He's one Lord. And for Paul, who is Jesus? Which contrast the Lord's many. Paul split the Shema between God the Father and God the Son. That's why he can come to a text that says, by myself I have sworn, from my mouth has gone out in righteousness a word that will not return to me. Every knee will bow and every tongue swear allegiance. And you can see he's quoting, and that's why when you go to scholars on this verse, they say kurios here equals YHWH. In him all the fullness of deity dwells. Jesus, as the God-man, completely experiences everything true of each nature without changing the essentials of either of those natures. The way to remember that is remaining what he was, he became what he was not. That's what I have for you today. I pray God's blessing on you.